Hello friends of Powerhouse Bakery. I'm Suzanne Parker and I'm the founder and CEO of this little bakery. And over the last few weeks we've been talking about really looking at nutrition, digging into all the nuts and bolts of nutrition. And my hope today is to cover a little more broader perspective. Those of you that know Powerhouse Bakery, our goal has always been to help people find their best healthy. And what we've been doing over the last few weeks as we dig into nutrition is looking at all of the big parts, the macronutrients. So we've been looking at protein and what builds the protein, and that's the building blocks of the amino acids. We've learned about the essential amino acids and even the non-essential. We've learned how to build foods that provide the complete proteins as well as the incomplete proteins. We've talked about fats, and we've talked about the building blocks of the fats, which are the essential fatty acids. We've talked about where to find them and what makes a good fat a better choice than a not so good fat. We've learned also about carbohydrates, and I've really tried to shed light on carbohydrates in that truly they're an important part of those three macronutrients, and we can't live without them. Despite the confusion and really what the media is trying to weave into this web of the perfect diet, taking out a food group like carbohydrates is definitely not a way to go to find your best healthy. And so today what I want to look at is the whole diet approach. When we think about the whole diet, what we want to think of is, instead of breaking down the parts and maybe even getting stuck in this reductionist mentality, I want you to be able to see how looking at the whole person and the whole diet is truly going to give you the best foods to live by. And when we think of the whole diet approach, we want to look back on science and understand, in the past 20 years, what have we done well and what have we maybe gotten stuck in the weeds on, so that we've ended up with a conundrum of confusing information and making it very difficult for the public, we consumers, to understand what is healthy and how do we get our best healthy from the information that we're given. Know that anytime we're looking into the media for answers, it's going to be skewed. We know that's always going to be the case. There's always going to be the value of the dollar that's going to influence our choices. Also, where we fall in the world of science. If we are a scientist and we're really focusing on our pet project, whether it be looking at amino acid chromatograms and how a keto diet or a high protein diet will help build muscle, and you tunnel it down into research that just looks at food A, B, and C and result of muscle building, you lose track of what the big picture is all about. And you lose track of how people take that information from the science lab into practice. And so that's, I think, where we get a lot of misunderstanding and confusion about bringing science into light of application. And so one of the books that I've been reading about is, again, kind of a new version of an old philosophy. The China study that was written many years ago is the same author now writing another book of rethinking the science of nutrition. And let me just step back a minute and also re-emphasize that we never want to put all of our faith into one body of evidence or one expert opinion. I really want us to all put on our scientific method hat and really think through strategically, how does the information deem relevant to our life, and how does it really stack up against our common sense, and how does it really stack up against the long-term science. So while I love this author and I think he has some really valid points, I don't want to use him or his research as the only body of evidence that we look at in making decisions. And so as I go through these classes and try to gather information for you, one of my favorite approaches is to Google. Google a question and find out what information pops up. And we will get a variety of resources. Not only is Colin Campbell a great resource, but we also see science-based evidence that pops up on that Google search. And so as you're doing your own research, I want you to always feel encouraged to question the information that I give you and question any information by at least 3 different sources so that you can really be comfortable with the information that you're going to go ahead and follow through with. So as we go through the whole diet approach, using a couple of different resources, the whole diet approach is really looking at not just the macronutrients. When we think of calories and grams and application by diet planning, the reductionist philosophy is really where all of the counting of calories has come from. And when we think about over the last 20 years, we have been doing a lot of calorie counting. We've been doing a lot of gram counting. We've been told that our fat grams are too high or our sugar grams are too high. And what I've tried to show you in the last few videos is that sugars are in fact a building block of carbohydrates. So then it becomes a question of, am I supposed to watch my carbs? Am I supposed to watch my sugars? And if I'm looking at grams, how do I know what is the correct amount? So the scientific approach would be, if you have a symptom that you're trying to treat, that will be a really smart way for us to decide what it is we want to change. So the whole diet is looking at the whole person. So the first thing we want to do is understand, is there something that we want to change? So if we have a goal for improving our overall health, the first thing we want to do is understand what is a symptom that we want to fix. When we look at the whole diet approach, that gives us now the whole person to look at, and that's going to be really important in our whole process, because there isn't any one answer for every body. There's a lot of different answers. And when we start looking at a reductionist approach, the philosophy around that is that if we track our grams closely enough and our calories accurately enough, everybody goes into the same bucket of what is healthy, and that's not correct. So an example, if we have a 1,000-calorie diet, by most standards, this would be a low-calorie diet. What if we had that 1,000 calories at 4 p.m.? We followed another trend, which is a modified fast. So you've probably heard of that trend as being popular. And if I follow all the new science and I'm going to try to be healthy and I'm going to follow the modified fast, because I've read that some movie stars have had great success, and some touted experts have said this is what you should do in order to be healthy, then all you have to do is wait 14 hours or 10 hours or 11 hours and not eat, and then everything will be fixed. And if we followed that rule and even took it one step ahead and said, well, I'm even going to lower my calories and I'm going to have a modified fast, I must be really healthy, and I'm going to eat everything at 4 o'clock. Because in fact, one expert has said that you have to hurry up and eat when you have gone so many hours without eating, because you have to now get a lot of calories in a short period of time. Another big erroneous comment. So back to my example of 1,000 calories. By all intents and purposes, we can assume that 1,000 calories is a low-calorie diet. But if we eat all those calories at one spot, do you think our body would have successful weight loss? And as I do my research, that answer would be no. This is called the 1,000-calorie conundrum. If you eat all of those calories at once, what does that do to our insulin levels? Now we're going to start digging back into our knowledge of science. We're going to look at the human physiology, which we are very sure that doesn't change much. Now, our interpretation and the marketing of that information does in fact change, but if we look at a black and white science book, we can know that if you take in a large amount of food at a small amount of time, our body is going to respond. All of our body's genetics are made up to survive. And if we take in a large amount of calories after not eating for a long time, our body's going to go, oh yay, I'm going to take in all those calories, bring in all the forces so that we can store those calories so that we can survive the next time that my human makes me fast for a long period of time. And I've circled and highlighted and blackened my arrow of this hormone, which is called insulin. Insulin goes up. We know that when insulin is high, we have now set up a scenario that is not healthy for our bodies. We know that when insulin is high, fat cells are starting to do their job really well, which is, that's right, storing calories. So if we eat what we would consider a low-calorie diet, 1,000 calories, but we eat it in a short amount of time, regardless of if it's protein, carbohydrates, or fats, we know that our body's hormone systems are going to change. The insulin will go up in order to utilize those calories, and the fat cells get really happy. The fat cells are happy because insulin is up. And that is something that we learn from science, not from the marketing of a brand new, exciting, latest diet. And so I always want us to think about looking at not only the marketing of a certain diet, we want to put it towards the science and understand, is that something that I want to invest my health dollars and my health time in? So that's the reductionist philosophy, looking at, instead of the whole person, looking at one micronutrient or one macronutrient. Let's look at another one. If we look at the zone style, the zone is a very middle-of-the-road diet style. We've also looked at keto. Again, these are looking at macronutrients. It's a reductionist philosophy in that it's saying if you follow these plans, you will have that success. So it's trying to say that some expert out there who has, certain values that they want to invest, they want you to buy their value or their offer proposition, because they are trying to convince you that they have all the answers for people's wellness. So the zone and the keto diet are two other popular ideas, and that is looking at, again, the macronutrient percentages. This one says, I think we should do balance. So let's do 30, 40, and 40. Can't do my math, 30, 30, 40 of the protein, carbohydrates, and fats. This one says, carbohydrates are bad, so we're going to do higher protein, and we'll balance out maybe the rest in carbs and maybe a little bit difference in the fats. So we'll kind of vary that depending on, but they always say that protein and fats should be much higher than typical. Again, this is the reductionist philosophy, looking at if we follow this plan, surely we're going to have the answers that we're looking for. And now let's again throw this towards science and understand if this is going to work for individuals. So will it work for me? The first thing we wanted to understand is, what am I trying to accomplish? What are my goals? And if the goals are weight loss, which a lot of times we see, or it might be to look at disease prevention, then we have to understand a little bit about the science. And that's certainly where a dietitian or sometimes a physician can help you understand the science. This is the part where the average consumer isn't going to understand. You guys hopefully will have more knowledge to at least be able to go and ask some good questions to your healthcare practitioner or, of course, to your dietitian. Understanding the science is where you need to be able to do some research. You might even, again, go to Google, go to Medline search and understand what is the science around the application of these reductionist ideas. And the sad part is, while sometimes we do see an improvement, it's very shallow to assume that it's going to work for everyone. Because if the individual has a goal that does not match this, you in fact could be ruining or hurting your overall wellness rather than improving. Another great example is people will oftentimes ask, how about juicing? Is juicing a good example for wellness or a way to gain better health? Again, it's another example of a reductionist idea. If we do juicing, is that good for everybody or is that good for some people? The first thing we're going to ask is, what is your goal of doing juicing? If your goal is, in fact, to just have overall wellness, then it might not be the right choice for you. We would have to decide, what is it about wellness that we want to improve on? And if the answer is, well, this person eats fast food and doesn't like any fruits or vegetables, no fruits, no veggies, and their favorite food is pizza, and they never exercise. I know that's none of us. So if we put this idea together, and now if we're comparing what they're currently doing, is juicing a better choice? Probably. We could even now put a medical diagnosis in there and say their goal is to improve their risk of cardiovascular disease, or maybe to improve their risk of cancer, they want to prevent or increase their risk, or decrease their risk of cancer, or maybe even diabetes. So if their goal is to improve a medical condition, sometimes juicing can be a good choice. Sometimes it's a worse choice. Say this person, instead of having a typical diet of Wendy's and Whataburger and pizza and fried chicken, they instead are already eating a zone style. See, they're already eating a zone diet and they're cooking at home, and they are learning to cook more with plant-based foods. They're not vegan, but they're just eating more plant-based. Do you think that this person would gain more wellness by going to a juice fast or eating all juices? Probably not. Now again, I say probably. We'd have to again look at their symptoms. If this person A, said, I'm already doing this, but I have a high risk of cancer because I have in my genetics lots of irritable bowel syndrome, and I've had lots of constipation, lots of problems. Now, juicing might help, but again, it's not going to be good for everybody. It's only to help with a certain symptom and short term. And so again, people try to sell you a juice fast and it's the latest and greatest. It's only good in a certain situation and with a certain goal in mind in order to improve that goal. So again, when you're thinking of the reductionist idea, all that's really talking about, and this is something that Colin Campbell talks about in his book, is when he's talking about rethinking the science of nutrition, what he's proposing is that we as consumers and also the nutritionists and experts that are trying to guide our decisions, is we want to look at the whole person. So an example is if we have somebody that is trying to prevent disease. First, we want to understand, what are they currently eating? Because we always want to go from what they're currently doing to great. Good to great. And I'll talk more about this in another time, but we want to understand how to make that person's diet better. Case in point, over the last 30 years, we have done a lot of diets. We Americans are very good at losing weight. We can do it. We do it all the time. We do it so often that we lose it and gain it and lose it again. We do it so well that we try 5 and 10 different diets because we're so good at losing weight. What are we not good at? We are not good at keeping it off. Why? Because of that reductionist mentality. We think that if we just follow that one more plan, it will be the trick. And we know that with only a short-sighted view, and we don't know the science behind our decision process, and we also don't know our individual situation, we're set up to fail. Nobody cares about that. Nobody cares about the fail that's selling you the diet. What they care about is getting you to buy their product. And so as pessimistic as that sounds, I don't want us to think that way. Instead, I want us to think of using the tools that science is providing us and the new diets that are out there to be able to make our best decisions. And while Colin Campbell does talk about his book, and granted he's trying to sell stuff and he's going to sell his classes online, I want us to use this as one of our resources to understand that when we rethink our best nutrition, we want to understand what am I doing right now and how do I make it better? What have I learned from the past and how do I prevent those mistakes from happening again? And something that I think shocks people when I get to meet with them in person is that your own body cues absolutely get forgotten in the reductionist mentality. Nobody remembers to say, how does your body feel after you do a modified fast? Some people feel great. And so that could be a tick in the right direction, eating less and maybe eating less often. So I always try to help people understand that your body cues are a valuable asset to our overall wellness. Hunger and satiety are things that I think those symptoms, I think we've forgotten how valuable they can be in guiding our overall principles. You know, oftentimes when people follow a new diet, whether it be the zone or the keto or one of those out there, people feel better. And that might be because they have decreased some of the toxic foods that are in their diet that we're not even aware of. Because again, we're eating foods off the shelf and we're driven by what the media is encouraging us to purchase. And so the provocative and really convincing ads will tempt us to put things in our cart, not knowing that it's actually contributing to our malaise or not feeling good. And then when we decide to follow a new diet and forced to eat some more health foods, so maybe some healthier fats, maybe healthier veggies, those are almost always going to make us feel better. But there's always people that will try certain veggies and have a bad experience. It doesn't mean that we should get rid of all veggies and only eat protein and fats. Definitely not. Somehow when carrots were given the bad rap that carrots and potatoes were bad for you, that they turned into sugar in your body and you should cut them out, I knew we were headed for a spiral. When we think of a vegetable that's so high in natural fibers and sugars and micronutrients considered bad, I knew we were in trouble. So what I hope that we can accomplish in closing in this whole food or the whole diet experience is I want you to think about what you've done in the past that has worked, that you felt great, what food types, what food schedule, most of all, your body cues guiding your decisions. And that's going to be your very best asset in deciding how you want to move forward and navigating through the world of media convincing us to spend our dollars here and there. Notice that we have a lot of influence. Political action committees, definitely the science world that wants funding, as well as food companies that want your dollar at the grocery store. Being aware of those factors helps us to be a critical shopper when we're thinking through, do we really want to shop the perimeter of the store? Or are we really missing out if we don't go to the center of the store and find all kinds of great options? I think the idea of just shopping the perimeter was a good start, but we have plenty of great things in the center of the store too. And if we can keep in mind that the center is all about you, now you're going to be able to navigate around the store and also around the media and really have a critical eye in choosing what your best diet is going to look like. And think of the whole diet and something that you can live with. Thank goodness we have that new mentality that it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle. Now what we really want to do is live that out and understand what that means in our overall wellness. So whatever you can do today and tomorrow, I want you to be able to continue for the next 5-10 years. As you start to gain new exciting recipes and eating styles, that's going to be what transitions your eating, not the latest diet. So I hope that's helped, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Have a great day.